I wore it because I wanted to be. Ta-da!
But you need to wear da-da because St. Patrick's Day is March the 17th, and you need to wear it. So
Oh, is that
da-da. You don't celebrate St. Patrick's Day? You grew up in New England?
Yes, I do, but I don't know what day it is.
It's the 17th
Of
of March
that,
every
what day?
year.
Is that Tuesday?
It's I don't know what day that is. I think it is.
I think it's a Tuesday.
Our meeting.
I think we have a board meeting. You should see what I'm doing. I'm filling in my calendar for the rest of this week now.
Because you can, huh?
No, yes, but you know, I don't, most of it I didn't take. I was really going, so I just blocked it all
Well, maybe
out.
you should block out off a few days and get off by yourself. No, oh, God forbid. You might contemplatively think quiet thoughts.
I think a lot. Listen, you have to understand this. I have to avoid thinking.
Okay, well, now that makes perfect sense for who you are. Yes, that makes perfect sense.
Okay.
I got it. I've got the program. Last night, there was a special, there was Celebrity Apprentice final. Lisa Gibbons won. I was so happy. She beat Geraldo. Stevie Wonder, there was a special salute to Stevie. And people talk about how they love the Beatles and Mike.
I'd like to welcome everybody to the February 17th, 2015 meeting of the Sarasota County School Board. If you would please stand for the flag salute by the Booker High School Color Guard under the direction of Colonel Ben Weiss. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Anybody wishing to speak today during hearing as citizens, there's cards in the back of the room. If you bring them up there to Zoe Marshall, I will call you up when we get to that point in the agenda. I'd like to introduce our new student representative today, Amy Gay from Pineview. Hi. Amy, if you could tell us a little bit about yourself, please.
Sure. Okay. Hi, my name's Amy Gay. I'm a senior at Pineview. I've been attending Pineview since second grade, so on my 10th year, getting excited to experience the real world, but I love Pineview. I like how it's a community, like with all the traditions. Like just this week, we're having Spirit Week throughout all of high school, dressing up in tie-dye, having tug-of-war. Really hoping my senior class can win, but it's cool if other grades win. I like English, I like movies, I like playing with my dog. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, and again, welcome. We'll move on to special presentations. Superintendent?
Yes, I'm going to ask Mr. Limpy to come up and introduce our speaker and talk about the exciting things happening with our historic buildings.
You bet, Superintendent White, board members, Ms. Gay. As the superintendent said, we have a guest with us this evening. This is Lori Muldowney. Lori is the manager of Sarasota County Historic Resources, and she's here to talk to you a little bit about the exhibit that you see displayed today in both your foyer and the adjoining hallways. And I guess I thought I'd take this opportunity just to talk a little bit about some related things. One of the phrases you're going to hear Lori use is "the building itself teaches," a phrase that I think the first time I ever heard was from Marty Hilton from the University of Florida when he was down here at the very front end of the Sarasota High School project. But I heard Marty use that phrase too, and I thought there's some real wisdom in "the building itself teaches." And I think the board has made some decisions true to that conceptually too. And I just wanted to take a second to hit on 3 examples to remind the board and inform the public that that concept really is alive and well in Sarasota County. And I want to hit on 3 real quickly. Fruitvale Elementary School, Southside Elementary School, and most recently Sarasota High. If you walk onto the campus at Fruitvale Elementary School today, it's interesting that Dr. Kingsley's in the audience with us today. If you walk onto that campus today and you walk into Building 3, which is the oldest building on that campus, it's been around since the early 1940s, what you see as you approach the building is a facility that is very true to its historic architecture. In fact, when you walk in the building, you'll see that the architect actually worked to mimic the design of the exterior in the entryway. What you don't see, one of the things we struggle with is this balance between being true to the history of the building and providing our students access to safe, secure 21st century learning. What does that look like? What you don't see at a school like Fruitville is all of the electronic security behind that historic building. So you walk into this beautiful space, maybe the nicest reception area in all of Sarasota County, but you can't get past there without a Prox card, because there's electronic security in the building that says walk into this historic building, but you only get access to our students if we let you get access to our students. So kind of a neat example of a balance between being true to the history and, in this case, safety and security. If you were to go to Southside Elementary School today, Southside is one of the original Sarasota County schools. It was built in 1926 along with its sister school, Bayhaven. Back in 2007, 2008, I guess, we went through a pretty major renovation of that campus, really with the focus on being true to the architecture. In fact, one of my favorite stories at Southside is Mark Smith was the project manager who oversaw that project. I remember my phone ringing one morning, and he said, "You got to come out here and see this." The team who was renovating was pulling out some of the walls that had been added to that building, the historic building, since its construction, and they had pulled off an old wall, and behind it was the original fireplace that kept the reception area warm in the days when that's how you warmed the school. That fireplace today has been renovated, and when you walk into the reception area at Southside today, it sits behind the receptionist. So only receptionist in Sarasota County, by the way, with a fireplace in her office. At the same time on that campus, we added a building that includes, among other things, our cafeteria. And when you look at that building, you'll see that there was really effort put in to mimic some of the things that you see in the historic building. The roof lines and the roof colors, the stucco patterns are very similar, and that was deliberate to be respectful of the architecture of the original building, but still give our kids a safe, secure 21st century learning experience. And then third and finally is Sarasota High School Building 4. If you haven't walked through Building 4 since it opened, you owe yourself the pleasure of walking through it. As you approach that building, well, remember, before I even get there, one of our goals with this project was give Sarasota High School a front door. Mission accomplished. I mean, as you turn onto Bay of Vista Road now, Building 4 just jumps out at you. It is very clearly the front door of Sarasota High School. Grand stairway with the big flagpole. I mean, as a newcomer, you know where the front door of Sarasota High School is, maybe for the first time since we were in Building 41. As you approach the building, the arrival experience, or the primary view corridor, to use what historians would call it, is as close to the way it was when Paul Rudolph opened it in 1959 as it has been since then. That building looks more original today from the outside than it ever has. Walk through the doors, though, and it's an entirely different experience. A fairly modest reception area, administrative spaces, but what else is in that building is pretty much the lion's share of the science department. When you walk into those spaces, you see the highest tech science spaces in Sarasota County. There are some as good, but there are none better. They now have all 10 touch panels in their classrooms. Every classroom space in that building is wireless. They all have air, water, and gas available at their stations, automatic shutoffs. I mean, the educational experience in that historically significant building today is among the very best in Sarasota County. So those are just three examples, I think. When you hear Lori say phrases like the building itself teaches, I think this board has made some really good decisions over the years to be true to that concept. Now, with that as a very long introduction, it's my pleasure to welcome Lori Muldowney.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon. Thank you for the opportunity to talk a little bit about the building itself teaches in Sarasota County's public school building program. As Scott mentioned, the exhibition that you have here is actually a replica of a permanent exhibit that was on display for about 18 months at the Sarasota County History Museum. During that time, we had several very well-attended gallery talks, and tens of thousands of people walk through the building and view the exhibition. Since then, it's gone up to the University of Florida for a reception that took place last October. It was also exhibited at a conference in Tampa, and we're pleased to say that the exhibition will be displayed in Philadelphia in 2016. So we're taking it on the road, and we're sharing the news about Sarasota County's public school building program. So the exhibition, if you haven't had a chance to take a look at it personally, I'll give you some highlights about it and tell you about it. It features the people, events, and architecture that shaped the Sarasota Public School program from 1954 to 1960. As I mentioned, it's a collaboration between Sarasota County Historical Resources, the University of Florida Historic Preservation Program, and some local partners, including the Sarasota Alliance for Historic Preservation and the Friends of the Sarasota County History Center. The exhibit talks about our public school building program here between 1954 and 1960, which received international attention, both in publications and in the popular press. It dramatically transformed the public educational experience of Sarasota County and offered a new precedent for school design across post-war America. So just to set the stage, I think as many of us know, of course, there was a large baby boom following World War II. There were approximately 77 million babies born during that period. And in many communities, public facilities had been neglected during the war years, and there was a great push for building new schools and institutions during that period of time. There was a growing trend, as noted here in Time magazine, that school design should allow flexibility in the learning environment. The keynote of the new U.S. school was freedom, as stated here in Time. One of the visionaries, or in my opinion, really the visionary for Sarasota County's public school building program, was a member of the Board of Public Instruction, as it was called then, Philip Hansen Hiss. Hiss came to Sarasota after World War II. He was the developer of the Lido Shores development, some of you may be familiar with. He was also a photographer and an architectural designer with a large family who moved to Sarasota and got very interested in educational opportunities here. Members of the Hiss family still live in this community, very close by in the Landings, in fact. So there was the Board of Public Instruction in 1959. Philip Hiss is photographed in the middle there, the tall gentleman, and he came onto the board in 1952. Just to talk briefly about some of his accomplishments, he assumed the chair of the Board of Public Instruction. He created the program for talented and gifted students, which was new to the school system at the time. We know him best for the $4.4 million school bond issue that was successfully passed during his time. And then another really interesting thing that he did was to, with funding from the Ford Foundation, he engaged a gentleman named Dr. John Goodlad to lead a study of Sarasota schools. Hiss believed strongly in the relationship between good design and good learning experiences. As he states here, his contention was that it was foolish to spend millions on salaries to attract good teachers if they were put into buildings that inhibited the educational process. That was a different kind of thinking for the time, that this sort of relationship between the school environment and the opportunities for teaching. And I think that's part of why it received so much attention. Hiss was working on a manuscript entitled Architecture for Education. It was never published, but in doing the research for this exhibition, Professor Marty Hilton was able to review the manuscript that family members shared with him, so that was pretty exciting too. So just to briefly name the schools that we're talking about here, there were a number of public school additions: Alta Vista Elementary, the Butterfly Wing, as I've always heard it referred to, Fruitville Elementary School addition in 1957 with Jack West, Englewood Elementary School addition, the Sarasota High School addition that we were just referring to that was completed by Paul Rudolph, Brookside Junior High School, the original building that no longer exists that was completed in 1955, was the earliest project, Venice Junior High, Booker Elementary, Brentwood Elementary, still quite intact in my opinion, from that 1958 design, and Riverview High School. In doing the research for this exhibition and project, we found that there were a couple of critical themes that evolved, and it was sort of an interesting way to organize our thinking about the exhibition. Adaptation was central to the design of the schools, and as we talked about earlier, some of the flexibility in the buildings themselves. If we look at some early photographs of Brookside Junior High, we can see how the buildings were adapted to fit the site. These buildings, remember, were constructed before air conditioning in public schools, and that's what really drove the designs in very interesting ways. At Brookside, the buildings were sited as a single corridor. There were transom windows, broad roof overhangs, and all of this allowed for both airflow and shady places on campus where students could congregate. Another critical theme that we talked about in the exhibition was experimentation. After World War II, there were a lot of materials that were available on the market that had not been present prior to the war. They were developed, in fact, as part of the war, the need to build buildings quickly and efficiently during the war. The use of poured concrete was new. The standardized modular of building was also a new concept. This is a photograph of an historic building that exists still in Venice called the Heron House. And I think it's interesting to look at this design and then look at Victor Lundy's Alta Vista Elementary School edition, and we can see some similarities in terms of the soaring roof line and the kind of innovative use of poured concrete for the time. Finally, another critical theme that we explored in the exhibition was democratization and some of the feelings that communities had about that following World War II. This is an excerpt from an article that Hiss wrote for Florida Architect in April of 1959, where he talks about the need for each school to be of an original design. He talks about the importance of schools playing a part in an existing social structure and act on it as well as being acted upon, because each community has the right, indeed the responsibility, to do what is best for its own children and to maintain its own individuality. I thought that was sort of an interesting commentary of the time. One of the most unique schools that was built during this period of time was Englewood Elementary School. As I mentioned earlier, an out-of-town expert came in, and he worked extensively with the students at Englewood Elementary to create a unique design there that would suit their needs. As I said earlier, there was funding assistance for this research from the Ford Foundation. What happened at Englewood was there was a plan there that allowed flexibility in teaching, and so the design of the building was revised in a way that it suited the needs that the teachers had articulated. Mainly, they were looking for maximum flexibility in the classroom and also the ability to do some team teaching. And it's interesting how these ideas sort of are timeless, I think, as we look at it today. And there's just a wonderful period photograph of Englewood Elementary School shortly after the time of its construction. So just briefly, I wanted to close by talking a little bit about Sarasota modernism and what's going on around town these days. About 2 years ago, we did a small conference here to talk about Sarasota modernism, and we had a guest speaker in from Palm Springs, California. They've had a very successful modernism week there for about 10 years. That attracts 40,000 people to home tours, bus tours, walking tours, receptions. Last year here in Sarasota, we hosted a Sarasota Mod Weekend, as we called it. That was very well attended. We had thousands of people come. The bus tours were very popular and the walking tours. So there's increased interest in modernism in general and in Sarasota modernism particularly. Certainly the newspaper coverage this past weekend of the rehabilitation of Sarasota High School was a very positive sign. In my opinion, is probably going to be one of the premier historic preservation projects in the state this year, so I wanted to personally thank you for all of your efforts on behalf. Modernism presents some challenges for historic preservation. As Lewis Mumford stated, we embrace the history of our grandfathers but often reject that of our fathers. However, we're seeing a little bit of a change in that perspective, as evidenced by the popularity of some of the shows from the 1950s, such as Mad Men. So we continue to work on enhancing people's understanding of the uniqueness of modern architecture and the place that Sarasota holds in that picture. I wanted to close with this final quote from Hiss's manuscript. School buildings speak a great deal louder than words. They say many things about a community's attitude towards education, intellectualism, and creativity. They speak of interest or apathy, pride or neglect. And I want to thank you for all your hard work on the school board and service to that ideal. Thank you very much. Are there any questions?
No?
Well, thank you for the opportunity.
Well, thank you very much.
Appreciate it very much.
We'll move on to superintendent's report.
I guess it's been a couple of months ago, Board Member Caroline Zucker asked that I meet, and I brought some additional staff to meet with Judge Lee Hayworth about a concept of how we might work more closely together to the benefit of both the court system, juvenile justice, and the work that we do within the school district, and having a greater communication. And so I'm going to have Bethany King come forward along with Judge Hayworth to talk about some of the initial efforts made, the possibilities of where it might go in the future, given if we had more resources to do this work. So it's just the beginning of some conversations at this point where we've done a little bit of work and we've learned from it, and we wanted to share that with the board. So, Bethany?
Thank you, Superintendent White, and good afternoon, members of the board and community representatives and guests. I am Bethany King, and I am the supervisor of alternative education, discipline, and dropout prevention. So naturally, this role of judicial liaison fits in nicely with all of the different areas that I address, and we are part of the Pupil Support Services Department here at the Landings. Primarily, this program has been focused on working with our at-risk youth and their families. So when Superintendent White asked if I take this on, naturally it was advantageous to do so because they all would ultimately end up benefiting all of our students and hopefully have a positive impact on their future outcomes. Initially, this program was designed to open the doors to the families, to opportunities that we offer that maybe they weren't aware that we offer, and also to bridge the gap between the students and the home, also our community agencies, and the juvenile justice system. As part of my role as a judicial liaison, I am able to provide timely information to Judge Hayworth in the courtroom in regards to academics, attendance, also to discipline, and it helps to make an informed decision in regards to an ultimate positive impact on our children and their futures. Some of our benefits up to this point, we've been able to link some of our at-risk youth to the adult high school or our GED programming, where they've just been out in the community and unaware of the opportunities available to them. We also have been able to assist families with re-enrollment. They're just out there kind of lost, so to speak, and so we've been able to find them and get them re-enrolled. And we've been able to offer alternative placement options, things that maybe we hadn't done in the past before, but becoming creative and looking at linking all of the resources we have so that we can get these kids back in school. That definitely has a positive impact on our community overall. So at this point, without further ado, I will present to you the Honorable Judge Lee Hayworth, who has been instrumental in assisting my role as judicial liaison here in the community.
Thank you, Bethany, and thank you for letting me appear before this board today. Ms. White was kind enough to give me a few minutes of her time today. I know you allow the public 3 minutes, and I've run for public office. That's 1 minute more than they give judicial candidates at the forums. So thank you for giving me a reprieve from the 3-minute time limit. Let me introduce myself. I think I know most of the folks here on the board. I've been a judge for 25 years. I'm now serving in the juvenile division. I've served in all divisions of the circuit court. This is my favorite division. And I get to see in that role every youth who's arrested in Sarasota County. And I also need to add that I'm a product of Sarasota County Schools, one of the baby boomers you heard about a few minutes ago. I went to Southside, Brookside, and Sarasota High about 4 years after it opened in Sarasota High. And my mother was a teacher here at Sarasota High in the old building. And I knew Philip Hiss, and he was a neighbor of mine. And we were very excited to see it. Although I will say the new building, when it first came up, we hated it. It was just so radical. We were used to the old type school building, and now we love it. So that shows how tastes evolve. And Ms. Ziegler, I don't know if you're related or not, but Ms. Ziegler was a famous English teacher at Sarasota High. She taught me English. So if you folks can understand me today, she gets the credit for that. I serve on the Supreme Court's steering committee for children and families in the courts. It is a steering committee chaired by Justice Periente, Barbara Periente on the Supreme Court. Other members include Mike Carroll, who's head of the DCF, Christy Daly, who's head of DJJ, Alan Abramowitz, who is the executive director of the statewide Guardian Ad Litem program. We have representatives of the Department of Education, Julie Collins, who is the program specialist that does the Safe Schools Environmental Safety Incident Reporting data is on there, together with a number of other judges, lawyers, and anybody who's really at a high level of policy for developing plans and programs for children in Florida. The steering committee has been studying for some time the school-to-prison pipeline problem, which respected social scientists and educators on all sides of the political spectrum tell us is statistically correlated to the number of out-of-school suspensions and expulsions that a student receives. Because it results in dropouts and sustaining the cycle of poverty that often leads to antisocial behavior. Now, educators have been aware of this pipeline dilemma for some time, but the courts have come late to this situation, and our awareness of how we can help has been an evolving process. There are now proven programs, national evidence-based programs, that can increase graduation rates, reduce expulsions and suspensions, and result in fewer of our kids having a future involve handcuffs and jail cells. To make this work, we need a partnership between the juvenile courts, the schools, law enforcement, and other stakeholders. So I'm here today to offer the judiciary's willingness to participate in such a partnership. Now, I've talked to some other folks who would be stakeholders here. We have here today to learn about this and perhaps to help with this, Lieutenant Tim Enos, who's with the Sheriff's Department, handles your school resource officers. We have Craig Schaefer present. Craig is here with his daughter. He's the chief assistant for Ed Brodsky. We also have, I've also talked with Jenny Donovan, who's the circuit court chief, circuit probation officer. And also we have here today Dr. Jessica Grossholz, who is a USF assistant professor of criminology. This idea has attention at the highest levels, including DOJ and Department of Education at the federal level. Now, my goal today is to submit for your consideration 2 projects. One has a short term, and one is longer term, and it's more directly related to addressing the school-to-prison pipeline problem. Then if you have any interest or you or your designees want to meet with me later so I can fill you in more details on this, we can talk further. And I'm assured we can do that without any sunshine violations. First, let me talk about the short term. You heard Bethany talk about how we started this pilot project, but frankly, she got so overwhelmed with other responsibilities that we couldn't continue it the way it really needs to be done. No fault to her. She just got so many responsibilities. And she's a superstar, but there's only so much she can do. And so what I'm asking you to do is see if you can, in this next budget year, assign a part-time school board employee to coordinate with judges concerning the common issues that affect the teachers, the courts, and, of course, the children who are on probation. We did try this on a temporary basis, and I think we did pretty well with that. In your materials, which I hope you got, I gave you a list on a memo of 16 different ways the courts can work with you in this area. And I won't spend a lot of time on those, but it's no secret that delinquent children come from highly dysfunctional families. You as the school board and the teachers and principals have limited ability to change that dysfunction. But the law gives judges a lot of authority that can reach out and touch not just the children, but the parents, and to intervene in those families in a way that can help correct the dysfunction, or at least to make the family life healthier. I can order parents to attend school conferences. I can require parents to go to parenting classes and anger management classes, participate in domestic violence, which we know happens in these homes, and participate in family counseling. I can order parents to get to school on time, and those who are non-compliant with my orders can actually face jail time as a last resort. But the linkage that we need to make this work efficiently between the judiciary and the schools is missing. The liaison can facilitate that. I also think it's useful for teachers and principals to know about allegedly delinquent behavior that's discussed in open court and thus exempt from the confidentiality that protects juvenile delinquency records. These are actual examples of things that have happened in my court, not just once, but similar things repeatedly. Wouldn't a principal like to know if a student that's had no problem at school was found at 1:30 in the morning with a bag of crack cocaine? How about a principal would like to know whether or not a student who was in their class was found in a public park with a Glock 19 in their waistband with members what appeared to be a gang? That's the sort of information that a liaison gets and can transmit pursuant to whatever rules you as the board set and your legal counsel approves. That's very valuable information. My goal, though, is to try to get into what's happening in the family, their dynamics, and see if we can fix as much as possible those issues. Now, so the first goal would be to get this liaison part-time to work in this area, to give the feedback back and forth, and the things that I've outlined in that 16 suggestions, I think, commend itself to this project. Now, the second goal, the more long-term goal, and I can't do this justice in the time we got here, but in your materials, you'll find excerpts from the Schott Foundation report that just came out this month on public education in black males. The problem's a national one, not just in Florida. You should note that our state, unfortunately, is ranked number 1 in out-of-school suspensions for both black and white students during the period of time of that study. Also in your materials is a article by Judge Steve Teskey. It's called "The Court's Role in Dismantling the School-to-Prison Pipeline." Now, Judge Teskey has spearheaded such a partnership, as I'm suggesting, in the biggest school district in Atlanta with amazing success. Such projects are underway in consideration in various other Florida counties, and there's a successful one already operational in Palm Beach. So we're not talking about inventing the wheel here. Now, as to specifics, what I'm asking the district to do is to join in my application for a free targeted technical assistance program offered by the Supportive School Discipline Initiative. The background's in your materials. The application is there because I want to show you what I got to do with it. It's an 18-week program that provides support on advancing discipline policy and code of conduct reform. There's no commitment from you as far as any money is concerned because it is free. There's no commitment as to a change of policy. But at the end of the process, the work group may be in a position to make recommendations to the superintendent and to the board about ways to move differently in this area. You and the superintendent will be able to comment, accept, reject, modify any proposals that would be made. The only commitment would be from you is to have somebody who is actively engaged to be present during the conference calls and the meetings that we may set. And the timeline is from March 11th to July 15th, and my deadline for setting the application is a week from this coming Thursday. So I emphasize that it is free. Anything we come up is non-binding. I just want to close by saying that for too long, our courts have been kept in our separate silos. We have not shared and tried to take advantage of the considerable benefits that synergy between the courts, judiciary, and law enforcement can provide to benefit our children. Now, I have asked for my contact information to be given to you. I'm available to discuss this matter in more detail, which it certainly deserves. But I'm hoping that when I submit the application to the Supportive School Discipline Initiative a week from Thursday, that you or the superintendent can give me a green light to add you as a participant to that project. I think that we have a great school system here. I think that one of the problems we've had in the past is with the children that I see that are expelled and dropped out. I serve both in the juvenile division and then later in felonies. I see the same kids that dropped out of school, and I'm sending them to prison. And I don't like doing that. And I'm looking for some way to try to change that whole dynamic. So I come to you and ask if you can partnership in those two areas. All right? And I'm available for any questions that you have.
Mrs. Brown?
Thank you, Judge Hayworth. I'm glad we're moving forward with this. You presented to FSBA several months ago, too, didn't you?
Well, I was actually, Judge Teskey did.
Oh.
And I was there,
And you were there.
to kind of give him support, which I don't think he needed, but
Yeah.
he's quite, by the way, he's willing to come here and talk about this himself.
I think it's a good program. It's like you say, we can ask parents to do things, but we can't make them do things, and sometimes that's it. I mean, we got to get them into some parenting programs, counseling programs, or let them know that there is some hammer there, and we can't get it. You can. And I, from the day I was on this board, was concerned about out-of-school suspensions and the number of them, and saying we're not really fixing the problem by this. You know, and part of that was as an employer, too. These parents then had a problem. We had a new employee that was having problems, coming to work because she had her third grader, I think, was suspended. Manatee County, not Sarasota. And it has effects on a lot of people. So I think if we can find alternatives to that, and I think some of yours are you also working with the NAACP? Because I know they came to me about this same issue also, and I think they met with you, didn't they, Lori?
Yes, and we're doing
Superintendent.
Our restorative strategies work, which is really dealing with how do you educate students in such a way that you can prevent some of the misbehavior, that they can understand through the way we implement certain practices, the impact of their actions at very young ages, and that's being implemented across the majority of our elementary schools now and one of our middle schools. So I think this is an issue that you have to approach in multiple ways, but I would tell you, in order for us to bridge this gap, to really to leverage what we can do together, you have to have willing partners. And to have a judge of his reputation being willing to open up those doors and see the possibilities where our agenda is the same, to make a difference in the lives of our students, which means you sometimes have to have those interactions with the whole family, which are sometimes difficult to do from just our side alone. Our challenge, as you are well aware, is finding the resources. And although Bethany, we were able to get her started, so we did enough to really see that this has benefits for us, but it's high demand from someone who's in a high demand position that we've already lessened some of the other support. So I think I bring this to you today so that you become aware, as I've tried to have everyone become aware of, yes, we've got challenges to our resources, but we have to think smart in terms of where we put the little resources that we might find, and devote it in a way that we can begin to get practices and procedures institutionalized, so they're not just dependent upon having a Judge Hayworth, but that they become institutionalized. This is the way we do the work. This is automatic. We have these conversations. It's a requirement that we have representation there, and there's a dialogue, and that we bring back information, so that it doesn't become a once in a while program that's only sustained with a grant. It's just the way we do this work, because we have to bridge that. If we want to make a difference in the lives of some of our families, we have to figure out a way to have this communication and working as partners to make a difference in the lives of our students, because it is so far beyond the classroom walls. They need to understand what's happening within our schools and what we can leverage. We need to understand the resources and ways that they can mandate certain requirements that also may make a difference.
Yeah, and I understand, too, that I read an article in the paper last week that the sheriff's office is working to educate students, or young people, they didn't say students, but young people on what some of the laws are. They may not be aware of some of the things that they do and they take for fun are actually against the law and can get them into a lot of trouble. So I think this is good that our community is looking at ways to solve the problems, and I applaud the efforts.
Ms. Goodwin?
Well, I applaud the efforts as well. I can remember hearing Judge Teskey talking, and Judge Hayworth was in the audience that morning. I thought that was just a great thing, and we have to start doing things outside the box. We cannot continue to do the same thing and expect different results. You know, these young people get in trouble, and I've worked with at-risk youth for many years. These young people get into trouble, and, you know, failure isn't fatal. We need to help them get up, dust themselves off, and help them have alternative ways of life, and give them hope and give them a way to turn their lives around. And I think if we don't, we are going to have more in prison, and we aren't going to be able to help these children and their families. And it's a two-generational street with families as well. So I'm all for anything we can do to help or be a partnership in something like this.
Mrs. Zucker?
Thank you. Judge, you had me when you said that we could keep students out of jail. We could also hold parents responsible. I believe that parents really want their children to be successful. A lot of them don't know even where to begin to help them be successful. But I think with your knowledge and your ability, you can help us understand that role better, and you can help parents as well. I also think that if we keep our students in school, we also can keep the FTE dollars that we lose when they're out of school. So if there was some way that we could correlate the FTE dollars that we would generate as a result of keeping students in school, that might be a very small part of how we could pay for this program, but at least a piece of it. Is there any way that, rather than the school district funding it on its own, is there any way that we could have a financial partnership with the judiciary? And I don't know, even though, you've spoken to a lot of people, so.
You know, I've talked to several people about that aspect of it, but it comes down to this. You know, I look at it from DJJ's standpoint. You know, they do their thing. They're a state bureaucracy. This program that we're talking about is, first off, these are our kids. They don't belong to the state. Yeah. Second of all, the benefits of this program inure mostly to the benefit of the school board and the school teachers and the principals. And trying to get funding for this with grants, et cetera, you can always talk about it. But you're talking about trying to save FTEs. My proposal is to try it for a year, review it in a year after, and see if it's been beneficial or not. The Palm Beach program that I referred to, Dr. Angela Bess is the director of that program in Palm Beach County. She's also on the Family and Children Court Steering Committee. They have a way of keeping the kids on the campuses safely, securely, and getting services in place there and saving the FTE dollars. So I think it's possible to do it. But quite honestly, I can't come here. As a matter of fact, when I go to Tallahassee, the legislators run to the opposite direction because I know I'm coming with a tin cup. But I think this is a sort of project that I laid before you. If you see it has value and you can do it somehow, squeezing it into the budget for the next school year, I ask that we try it. And if you can find a way to do it, great. If not, we'll go another direction. But frankly, you guys are major players in this. And having somebody who's reliable in court, somebody like Bethany, who knows the system or somebody of the equivalent skills, I think at the end of the day, you will see it has proven itself and saved money for you. But I can't guarantee it. I'm just saying it makes sense that if we're keeping kids in school, you're not losing the FTEs.
Right.
And it has been successful. I won't have a problem taking a group of folks over there to look at their program and seeing it up close and personal and ask the questions that you've got, or talk to Angela Bess and ask her to explain how the money thing works. Now, knowing Palm Beach, they get more grants than anybody in the world, and I don't know how they do it. I'm not a good grant writer myself. I've gotten few of those, but I do think that the money thing is a consideration. You're doing things for the taxpayers and using it wisely. If you think it's a wise decision, fine. I hope you can support it. But something's got to be done. Somebody's got to take the first step forward, and I'm hoping that the school board will consider it favorably.
I agree with you. We do need to do something, and it really is our responsibility. But I don't know how anybody else feels, and I don't know where we would get the money from this year. But I guess when there's a will, there's a way. So we just need to find that way.
Well, I notice you're in your budget cycle.
I know.
I wanted to be here before it's too late.
I know.
And I know these are considerations, and unfortunately, we get the same results, and I'd like to try something different that would get us in a new direction. If it works, fine. If it doesn't, you've spent a year, and so I don't want to say it's a drop in the bucket, but to me, the possible for reward is greater than the risk that you're really taking with it. But again, it's not my money. Well, maybe it is. But I do think it is something that I hope you'll favorably consider. That, and also the application, if you could at least tell me or have Superintendent White say it's okay for me to say the school board is at least willing to send somebody to participate in this project that we've got with the free program to look at different options. That would be helpful. So I think we'll have the support of the Sheriff's Department, State Attorney, the DJJ, and hopefully other stakeholders. But
well, you have my.
I need you.
And the superintendent needs.
We will be participating with you on the conference calls, and we're actually reviewing our student code of conduct, so it will provide us additional information as we make those revisions. So I think it would be very appropriate for us to participate.
Thank you. My major criticism of our justice system when it comes to youth is that all the legislature gives us are sticks. We don't have any carrots. And trying to develop carrots to get kids to go the right direction is really a challenge here. I can put them in detention. I can make them do, work stuff and all that. But get them educated. That's really where the key is to keeping them in their future safe. And so that's where I am. Thank you very much for the time.
Mrs. Ziegler?
I could just quickly want to say, and I'm glad that this seems to be a consensus at the board, that I believe that working smart is definitely the way to go, and combining resources. While we have a lot to be proud of in Sarasota County, there are some areas that we need to focus on and get serious about it. So, I think it's advantageous. It'll pay dividends in the long run if we can really tackle this problem. So I really appreciate your presentation today, and I'm looking forward to hopefully seeing this move forward.
Well, let me say that I've got grandkids, and actually one of them is at Lori Kingsley's at Fruitville, and I've got them at Southside, and I'm proud of our school system here. And I think I've got children, all my children went to school here, and they all turned out pretty good. But they weren't of this demographic that we're talking about, and we need to reach down and try to find some way to make it better for them. Okay, thanks.
Judge, thank you very much, and I'd ask the superintendent on next monthly budget workshop that we have a discussion on this item.
Absolutely.
Thank you. We have no additions and corrections to the consent agenda. If I could have a motion to
Move
approve.
the consent agenda.
Second.
Any discussion? You would vote, please. And the consent agenda passes 5-0. We have no new business. I did want to take a moment to announce again, as I did the last meeting, that I'd like to remind the public that the school board, Sarasota County, and the City of Northport staff will hold a community engagement meeting to discuss with interested citizens the joint project to construct a Suncoast Technical College campus and a joint-use county library in Northport. That meeting will be held in the Toledo Blade Elementary School cafeteria Thursday, February the 19th. That's a day after tomorrow from 5:30 to 7:30. Any announcements or communications?
I have one. Just wanted to mention that choice ends at 4:30 on the 20th of February for those parents who wish to change schools to a different school than their district school. That has to be into us by the end of day, which is 4:30 on the 20th.
Mrs. Zucker?
I just wanted to give accolades to Booker High School for their performance of a Midsummer's Night Dream. It really was a twist with a twist, and I tell you, I was really surprised at the end of it. It was a fantastic performance. And as I keep telling all of our community people, you ought to look up at our schools, and if for $10 you can see a first-rate play, and you can support your schools, and you could see the wonderful work that our students are doing. Thank you.
Our next regularly scheduled school board meeting will be March the 3rd, 2015 at 6:30, and we are adjourned.
Thank you for attending. Glad you could make it.
No, go ahead.
How you doing? Steve Canty's Executive Director of High Schools.
Stay safe. Stay healthy.
Plans for next year?
Not yet. I'm waiting